Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our, I think, third, third week, fourth week, fourth week of our uh, Sunshine Coast School District Parenting Through Difficult Times series. This week, we're talking about understanding behavior, and I'm Sarah Joseph, and I empower people with tools to help strengthen relationships. Tonight's topic I love because it really helps us understand a lot about relationships and a lot about why people do the things they do. Um, so yeah, let's dig in. So first of all, I want to say that some of the ideas that we're going to talk about tonight come from Adler. Adler is a psychologist who was around like in Freudian times, so same era. And he made some really amazing theories and that are now being proven correct by research and brain science and attachment theories, all coming kind of connecting it together. So some of the ideas come from his core ideas about behavior. And so some of the things that he said was that behavior is purposeful and that the purpose of behavior or the goal of behavior is to feel significance and belonging. This is the basis for our positive discipline classes that we teach here on the Sunshine Coast. And when I talk about significance and belonging, I really like to make it clear that what I feel that significance is that I have a purpose, that I serve a purpose within my community, that I am important, worthy, um, that if I wasn't here, somebody would miss me, right? And that sense of belonging is really that sense of being loved, being connected, being cared for. So they really do go hand in hand, and we we are hardwired for these needs. Our behavior is really pushed by our desire to have these needs met. Okay. Um, so misbehavior is often a mistaken belief about how to reach that goal. So a mistaken belief about how to feel significance and belonging. Now, this concept is really easy when we think about that common saying about children who are acting out. And we often say they are acting out because they just want your attention, right? And so if we think about misbehavior, the acting out, right, is the is the behavior, but the goal is to get your attention, right? But really, I hate thinking about it that way because it feels such a negative thing. But when we change that to the goal is to feel connected, to feel important, then we go, oh, wow, I better pay attention to this behavior and figure out a way to help them feel that um, without acting out, right? And so that's what we're going to talk about tonight. The other thing I wanted to bring back from the first session that we did is Adler's idea that horizontal relationships help us feel significance and belonging. So in our first session together, we talked about that power over dynamic and how we're trying to create more equality or sense of horizontal relationships in parenting. And moving forward, I want you to think about it as a way to help us meet the needs of our children to feel significance and belonging. Okay, so remembering that the primary goal of all children, all people really, is significance and belonging, we want to ensure that before we correct any behavior, we're definitely connecting. Okay. And just like we talked about last week when we talked about the brain, it's important that we connect first so that we can calm down the amygdala, calm down that guard dog to make sure that all the animals are working together, the brain is all online, so that we can actually move into that problem solving or correcting behavior step. And in order to do that, we need to connect first. Okay. That's really going to help us um, find that relationship with our child and meet that goal of feeling significance and belonging, so that they can learn, so that they can change behavior, or want to change behavior, so to speak. Okay, so before we get into diving a little bit deeper into understanding behavior, I wanted to stop here and just think about a few questions that you might ask yourself if your child is misbehaving. So the first is it possible your child feels disconnected, right? Is the behavior a cry for connection time? Again, we often look at it as attention that the child is seeking. But what if we just change that word to connection time, right? They're just looking for connection. How would that change the way that you reacted to the behavior? So the second question is this developmentally appropriate behavior for your child's developmental age? And let's be clear that not always is developmental and chronological age the same. Okay. So sometimes it's really helpful to understand what the different developmental stages are. What is an appropriate behavior for a 2, a 4, a 7, a 10, a 12-year-old? Where, you know, how does their brain work? What are they capable of understanding? How is their brain helping them to understand what's happening around them, or um, kind of not thinking like an adult, right? So it's really helpful for us to understand the developmental stages of kids so that we can understand what's realistic and what's unrealistic expectations of their behavior. And also understand what skills they might be lacking to navigate this situation on their own. Okay. The third thing that we want to think about is my child having a hard time managing their emotions? So, is their guard dog barking? Are they looking for some co regulation, some emotional support? Do they need some help just getting their animals working together, or getting their brain all back online so they can function and move forward and solve the problem that's causing some distress in that moment? Um, and just noting that, again, the best way to handle that situation if they're having a hard time managing their emotions is to connect and to help them with the co-regulation, right? So when we're asking these questions, I just want to help soften your response, or help you become more curious, or become more helpful instead of punitive, right? So often what happens when kids are misbehaving or acting out, or having a hard time managing their emotions, is we feel uncomfortable. We get triggered by it. That sound of them whining, right? Or screaming, um, or throwing things across the room. Like, all of those behaviors can be quite triggering to us as adults. Um, and And when it is, we often react quickly because guess what? Our amygdala, right? It's our guard dog is barking. And so it helps, that part of our brain makes us want to act quick without thinking. And so these questions might just help us slow down a bit, right? So that we can respond more thoughtfully, and maybe not have such a knee-jerk reaction to some of the behaviors that we might see or encounter. Okay, so again, children are always making decisions, decisions about themselves. Am I good or bad? Am I adequate or inadequate? Am I capable or incapable? They're making decisions about other people, like us, adults, in their lives. Are we helpful or discouraging? Are we encouraging or threatening? Right? They're making decisions about the world. Is it a safe place or a threatening place? And they're making decisions about what they need to do in order to survive or to thrive. And these decisions, they really become very ingrained in our belief systems. And they start to direct our behavior throughout our entire life. Um, I read somewhere that over 90% of our behavior is directed by our subconscious minds. So we're not even conscious about the reasons we're doing the things that we're doing as adults. And the the unconscious thoughts or beliefs that are driving our behavior are actually programmed into our brains, into our subconscious, by these decisions that we make as children. Okay. And let me just say that sometimes these decisions don't make a lot of sense because we're children, and because the way the brain connects things um, might not make a lot of sense. So we call that private logic. And private logic doesn't need to make sense to you. It doesn't even need to make sense to me. It just happens. Okay. And the way that this happens is we have an experience, and then we have a personal perspective of what that experience was like. And so, again, our brains are wired in a certain way, and they make connections between experiences that we've had before and this experience, things that we've seen before and this experience. And they synapses fire, and it makes these weird connections, and we make decisions based on those connections, and then we make beliefs based on that connection, and then we see our behavior influenced by that. So let me give you an example here. So let's say that we have a kindergarten student who has just welcomed a new sibling into her family. And now we see her behavior has changed at school and at home. She's having a lot more meltdowns. She has had some toileting accidents. She is refusing to feed herself. She wants other people to feed her. And she doesn't want to sleep in her own bed, right? And now sometimes people look at this and say it's regression. But if we dig a little deeper into understanding what's going on with her behavior, we might be able to see that she has had an experience where she has a new sibling in the home. And what she is seeing or experiencing is that when the baby soils itself, mom or dad changes its diaper and plays with that baby and goos and gaws over that baby and tells the baby how sweet it is while they're changing the diaper. She sees that whenever the baby cries, the baby gets picked up and cuddled and soothed and loved and spoken to lovingly. She sees that whenever the baby needs to be fed, mom or dad feeds the baby and spends time with the baby, cuddling, talking. And then she also sees that the baby doesn't have to sleep in the baby's room. The baby gets to sleep in mom and dad's room. So this goes in through her personal perspective of the experience, where she may be feeling like the baby is getting a lot of love and attention. And in order to get love and attention, maybe I need to do something like that too, right? And that becomes a belief. The way that people get love and attention, the way that people get significance and belonging is by having meltdowns, by crying, by soiling themselves, by refusing to eat, all of those things. And then the behavior shifts. Now, again, this is done subconsciously. It's not like a 5-year-old is thinking, how do I get more attention, right? No, it's just done subconsciously. The brain is just working its magic and doing its thing. And we are not conscious of this experience. I can tell you that an experience of my own that I often share when I'm teaching about behavior is my experience of, I think I was around 3 years old, 3 or 4, when I was with my grandfather, and I was really upset and I was crying, having a really hard time. I have no clue what it was about. But he picked me up and put me on his lap and cuddled me and soothed me, and then offered me salt and vinegar chips. To this day, I won't tell you how many years later, to this day, when I'm upset and really stressed and really upset, I crave salt and vinegar chips. And I can see here how my personal perspective of the experience has linked those two things together, right? And so my belief has become that salt and vinegar chips are a way to calm myself down and make myself feel good and feel safe, because that's how I felt when I was sitting in my grandfather's arms, right? So it influences my behavior by making me want to eat salt and vinegar chips when I'm upset. So you can see how an experience that happened when I was very young has influenced my behavior throughout my adult life as well. Okay, so let me just say, this is not this blueprint of beliefs that affect our behavior. They are not set in stone. Okay, we can change them, and we can uncover. It took me a while to figure out how that was all connected, but we can figure it out and we can change them. That's the wonderful thing about the brain. We do have the neuroplasticity to be able to change the way that we think, to be able to change our behavior, to be able to affect our beliefs. It just takes a little bit of engineering. That's all. So, in positive discipline, we like to say a misbehaving child is a discouraged child. When we think about how, you know, basically, if we think about the need to feel significance and belonging, a child who isn't feeling that may be feeling discouraged, right? And that's when they start taking on these mistaken beliefs about how they can reach that goal of feeling significance and belonging. And so they start misbehaving. They start following that path of trying to get to that goal of significance and belonging, but they've chosen the wrong path, right? And so again, they keep meeting all of these kind of dead ends or roadblocks, because people aren't responding to them in the way that they were hoping that they would be responded to. So if we can use our parenting skills, our tools, our love, our connection, to help them contribute and to feel encouraged, we can encourage them back onto the path that's going to lead more directly to them feeling significance and belonging. So I like to think of it like this iceberg. Okay. So at the top of the iceberg, we have behavior, the behavior that we see, right? And so underneath that is that belief, right? Maybe it's a mistaken belief about how to reach significance and belonging. And underneath that belief is that need for significance and belonging. So it's driving, right? Drives up the behavior to the top, to above the surface of the water, that need at the very bottom. Now, if we come in and we try to extinguish the behavior that we see. So maybe we have a child that's hitting, or I don't know. Let's go with hitting. Maybe we have a child that's hitting, and we come in and we cut off that behavior. We do whatever we need to make the child stop hitting, and we just extinguish that behavior. We just chop off the top of that iceberg. And we chopped off the top of an iceberg in real life. What would happen is the bottom of the iceberg would push up, and just more iceberg would end up popping out from below the surface, right? And that's the same with this iceberg. We haven't changed the belief behind this behavior, the hitting behavior. So we can go in and we can stop the hitting behavior, but because we haven't changed this belief and we haven't met the need for significance and belonging, what's going to happen is just a new behavior is going to pop up in its place. So it's really important when we're looking at especially repetitive behavior that is not meeting the need for significance and belonging, and probably driving us all crazy. Um, when we're looking at repetitive behavior like that, it's really important that we don't just cut off the top of the iceberg, because now the child, might not be hitting, but now they're biting or kicking or having meltdowns, right? Or throwing things. We haven't actually eliminated the behavior. We've just created a different type of behavior. So now, in positive discipline, we talk about some of the mistaken goal beliefs. So we've come up with some ideas about how most children end up in one of these four mistaken belief categories when they are doing when they are misbehaving. So the first category is undue attention, and that's the belief that I belong only when you pay attention to me. The second is misguided power, and that's the belief of I belong when I'm the boss, or at least when I don't let you boss me. The third is revenge, and that's the belief that I don't belong and that hurts, so I'm going to hurt back. And then the last one is the belief of assumed inadequacy, which is the belief that I don't belong, I'm never going to belong, so I just give up, leave me alone. So let's look a little bit at how we can encourage these different types of mistaken beliefs. So you can see we have at the top of the iceberg, we have the undue attention, which is the misbehavior. So, or the mistaken goal, right? And then underneath is the belief behind that behavior. I only belong when you pay constant attention to me or give me special service. Now, remember, the driving force here is the need to feel significance and belonging. And the encouraging tool that we can use to help that child feel significance and belonging is to notice them and involve them usefully. So let's imagine for a second that we had a child who was interrupting constantly. Okay, so you're trying to have a conversation with an adult, maybe your partner, maybe a friend, maybe you're on the telephone, and this child keeps interrupting you every time. It's like as soon as you get on the phone, or as soon as they see that you have another adult in your range of speaking, they are beside you trying to interrupt in that conversation and get your attention. So this could be a behavior that we could say is has the mistaken goal of seeking undue attention. And that child may feel like they only belong when we pay constant attention to them. And so how could we notice them and involve them usefully in that situation? And one of the tools that we teach is to maybe have a silent signal, so that would help them feel noticed, right? So we could maybe teach that child, when you see me talking and you need to tell me something, I want you to come up and squeeze my hand. And that will let me know that you have something to say to me. And I'm going to squeeze your arm back to let you know that I notice you and I will be right with you. So that is maybe a tangible way that we could help them feel more noticed in that situation and feel that need for significance and belonging, and help encourage them into more appropriate. I don't know what the word is here. I don't know if appropriate is the word that I want to use, but more appropriate is the word I'm going to go with. Appropriate, or encouraged behavior. Okay. The second one is misguided power. So this child feels like they only belong when they're the boss, or at least you're not trying to boss me. Okay. So this one tells us that we can encourage them to feel significance and belonging by letting them help or giving them choices. Okay. So we can maybe look at this one as, um, a child is refusing to get dressed for school. And so we might be able to give them choices about um, what outfits to wear, or something like that, right? Give them a choice. Um, Somebody who is refusing to eat dinner, we might get them to help with setting up dinner, with cooking dinner, with setting the table, so that they're part of it. And they feel like they're making some choices. So get them to help in like the meal planning and the meal prep. So they feel like they're more in control, right? This is going to help them feel that sense of belonging and significance. Not only are they important enough for them to have a say in what we're going to eat as a family, um, but we've also been cooking and preparing things with them so they're feeling connected to us. Okay, revenge. So revenge is the behavior, and underneath the surface we see that the belief behind that behavior is, I don't belong and that hurts, so I'll get even by hurting others. And the way that we can encourage them to feel significance and belonging is um, by recognizing that they're hurting and validating their feelings. So this might be, the revenge, um, the revenge behavior might be something like a child is screaming at you, I hate you, right? And so when we're able to not take that personally and bite back, we can see that they're hurting, and we can say things like, wow, you sound really angry, right? And just by saying that, we're validating their feelings, we're connecting with them, we're making them feel important enough for us to care that they're hurting, right? That they're angry. So again, we're meeting that need. And the more that we can meet the need for significance and belonging in these situations and outside of these situations, be proactive about how can we set this up so that our children are feeling significance and belonging as much as possible, then we're going to be able to extinguish a lot of misbehavior, and we're going to be able to avoid a lot of misbehavior and the need for mistaken beliefs and mistaken behavior. All right, the last one is assumed inadequacy. And this one, might be as simple as trying to ride a bike, learning a new skill, um, trying, trying to get something done that they keep on resisting and not putting a full effort into it, and you can see that. Um, they might be saying, I give up, leave me alone. And in, what can we do to help is encourage them, is to not give up on them and to show them small steps and to be there beside them to encourage them through the effort that they're putting in. Okay. All right. So again, the hope here is that we recognize that really the basis for significance and belonging is to help, or the basis of our behavior is to reach significance and belonging. And that if we are able to help encourage our children to feel that on a regular basis, then we're going to be able to reduce misbehavior. So with that said, I am going to sign off for this week. I'm going to encourage you to focus on thinking about how you respond to behavior, and what you could do to encourage your children to feel more significance and belonging. And I'm going to direct you also to a video that I made last spring, called The Importance of Family Time, where we talk about building those relationships to make them stronger and helping kids feel that significance and belonging. Um, on an everyday kind of basis. Okay. So that's all for this week. And I'm going to turn off the recording so that those live can have a discussion. And next week we will meet again. And let me check here and let you know what we're talking about next week. Next week, we are going to be talking about becoming a good emotions coach. So we're going to talk more about how we can help our kids handle big emotions and learn some more self-regulation skills, and how they can also learn how we can help them with emotional intelligence. All right. So have a good week, and hopefully we'll see you again next week. Thank you for joining us.